All right, let's get it started. So, I just wanted to share first kind of the idea and vision, some of the idea and vision behind what we're doing. So, I just hit record and I just start talking. Sometimes other people are talking, and um, the idea, the intention is to capture as authentic and alive of a conversation as possible. So where so many things in this world are like pre-scripted and pre-recorded and pre-rehearsed, to have something that's just, as we've been saying lately, drinking from the living waters, as much as we possibly can. And for us to be authentic to the moment together and be alive to the moment and just see what comes through and just to capture it and then to, and share it. And um, I think we can capture a lot of magic, a lot of miracles when we're just open to the moment together and we're authentic together and we're capturing a real conversation. And I think that's something that we're lacking in our world. Like if you turn on a cable news channel, for example, it's just 30 seconds of people yelling at each other, arguing. It's like it's not a real conversation, and it's kind of pre-rehearsed what they want to say, and so I feel that feels like pretty special and pretty unique. And the second thing is the circle concept of a bunch of people all on the screen at the same time, all sharing together at the same time. That was the other part that I think is pretty unique and pretty special. And I'm just grateful that we're all a part of the experiment together and we're doing this together. And kind of each moment leads to the next moment, each week leads to the next week. And um, yeah, there's a certain level of courage, I guess you could say. I think courage. I think that the exact translation of courage is from the heart. I believe is what courage translates to. Um, so there's a certain level of courage to be here together, and so I'm grateful to be here with you all and be in the aliveness of the moment together. So we had our men's mastermind group. So there's a lot of different. I was jotting down a lot of different notes about um, health and wellness and different aspects of that, things possibly to get into or maybe touch on all of them. But I feel this conversation we got into in the men's mastermind last night, which I'll explain in a minute. Uh, it feels like it's the most dynamic and alive and potentially powerful. And there's a compressed amount of time. We'd have a chance to really unwind it and really get into it deeply. We have a compressed amount of time, and it's also a private space. So now we have open space and we have an open amount of time. So yeah, so I'm excited to explore this topic with you all together and see what happens here. So Jacob, Purple Man, was talking about how he feels like he has a way of like saying things in a way that sounds bad, but it's actually good. Like he says he's full of it, and then he says that he feels like he's crumbling apart, right? So he's like, I'm just crumbling apart. I'm crumbling apart. And so then I was saying that, well, okay, imagine that there's like a wall, you know, and the wall is crumbling apart. So if it's crumbling apart, or if there's two things and the two things are coming apart, then that creates an openness. And and in that openness, the more that things fall apart, the more openness there is. So if things crumble apart only a tiny bit, then there's only a tiny opening. But if things crumble apart more, there's more of an opening. If things completely crumble apart, then it's completely open. So there is a sense of the crumbling apart creates the openness, and the crumbling apart is the crumbling apart of the old. right? So you're the things that you've been maybe attached to or identified with are crumbling apart. And in the crumbling apart, there's the openness, and then the openness is the space for the new creation to come into being. And the new creation could be you. You could be the new creation that comes into being. But before there's the new creation, there has to be the crumbling apart of the old. So we tend to think of the crumbling apart as bad because we don't like things crumbling apart. You know, things destruction is a bad thing in our minds. But the crumbling apart, in other words, the new creation can't happen without the crumbling apart first. And so the old disintegrating, creating the opening for the new creation. And also we were kind of acknowledging that it can be a scary space to be in the space where things are crumbling apart, but you don't see anything new yet, you know? So that can seem like, well, I'm dying or the world's dying or things are coming to an end, right? But you really can't have it's like we want a beginning, but we don't want an end. But you really can't have a beginning without an end. You know, the end is actually the beginning, and the beginning is actually the end, right? So that's kind of what we were touching in on, and and kind of a reframing of the sense of like things are falling apart as a bad thing, right? Not to um, not acknowledge people's feelings. Like I said, it could feel very scary. There could be a sense of mourning. There could be a lot of different feelings that are present in that space, but it's not a bad space. You know, it's the space that is the preface for the new creation to come into being.
Kind of
So
like
we,
kind of like bark on a tree.
mhm.
You know, you see, as a tree expands, the old bark gets brittle and cracks and starts falling off. And then that new skin is on the tree is very uh soft and vulnerable and but that's the only way it can expand.
Yeah, you can see a lot of examples in nature, right? A lot of different. Someone mentioned last night in our group about the snake shedding the old skins,
Yeah.
you know, as another example. There's a lot of different examples of it. And so these can be like big moments, like big shifts in our lives, but really this like birth and death is happening um the more that you're awake and alive to the moment, the more that you're available to the living waters, the more this birth and death is happening continually and you're aware of it continually. In other words, you're like living in the new creation continually. Like in the breath work, we talk about this a lot, right? Of like when you're exhaling, you're releasing the old, and then when you inhale, you're bringing in the new, right? So it's the new and the releasing the old, bringing the new, bringing the old. So it's like to live from this place where you're available to essentially be a new creation every moment, and just be in a space of trusting. If you want to use, we could use a lot of different words, but let's say trusting that the letting go of the old is making space to bring in the new, and the new is something that is what is the highest and best for yourself and the whole together.
Yeah, I posted on Facebook a little while ago a little story of an older woman. She's 103, and they were asking her what her keys to a happy life is. And she said one of the biggest things is the ability to let go of stuff, just of things that no longer serve you. Um, she said that just freed her and helped her go on and feel happier all the time.
Yeah. Jacob, did you want to follow up on any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. What an exciting, feels like very exciting place I am, very exciting experience to have. Um, the other day I was so we do, man, I don't even know where to start. Um,
Start right here.
Start right here and now.
Yeah.
So in the mastermind group, we lay out our intentions for the year. Um, we start thinking about these at the end of the year, and we've just entered to a new year. So this stuff has been like fresh on my mind, what my goals are for this year. And like over the past couple weeks, I'm realizing that um, the goals that I had come up with are just like really being blown out of the water. Like I am really stepping into a place that feels like a new level of reality. Like I always say, I always talk about, this what we're doing here. Like if you look in the mirror, if you look outside and you look at the planet spinning and orbiting a star and spiraling through space, like if all that is real, then anything surely is possible. And it's like I'm hitting a whole new level of understanding that anything is really possible. And my goals and dreams for this year are just like what I see happening this year in my life is totally opened up into a like an infinite field, really, that's so much further than the limiting goals that I was originally thinking just a few weeks ago. Um, and it's been hitting me that I don't know, it feels like I'm stepping into another version of reality where the creative possibilities are more than ever available. And it's been feeling like my whole reality is crumbling. And that's what Brian was talking about initially. And it is like a little scary and there's a little bit of fear, but also like the excitement for like what the trajectory that my path I see taking is just amazing and it's blowing my mind. And the other day I was in the gym for the first time in 3 years working out. And I was like, really, I was breathing and I was stretching and I was really in the present moment, like with my body and my breath and my focus. And in between sets, I was just focused on looking at a stack of weights in front of me and I'm breathing and kind of regaining, just calming from the workout that I had just done. And these weights just start like shaking, and it looked like literally everything was crumbling, gonna crumble and fall down. And so it hit me like um, what Brian was talking about, like my past, my old comfort levels, what reality used to be for me is crumbling and falling down and creating this new space of unknown. And it's, sometimes the unknown is scary, but it's more excitement than fear and scaredness. I guess that's the right word. I don't know. But it's so much excitement and it's almost unbelievable what is going into motion right now, like as we speak, and this weekend, and all these things that I'm doing with Jeffrey and Brian, and it all seems like the level of possibility is just way, way farther than I ever thought possible. And it's really amazing to be stepping into a place where it feels like there's so much potential um, in the unknown. And I'm just glad to be here, glad to be having this experience, and just amazed at what is. I feel amazed to experience what God is creating through me. And I'm just humbled and like um just so full of gratitude to be experiencing this like next level of open creative reality that I'm going into.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Jacob. Jeff, you want to add on to that at
Oh
all?
yeah, I'll add on to that. I'm feeling a lot of the same as Jacob, and a lot of things have been opening up for me as well, and been feeling really like things really expanding, I guess. Um, and just like he's saying, it's pretty exciting. It's really exciting, but I also feel like a deep level of peace from it all. And I think that's coming from, I've been praying a lot lately and just praying for alignment really to God's will and praying that, Jesus is with me, through me, acting through me, that I'm an open vessel for love and to come in and fill me and to be able to share it with those around me. And I think that is like, I don't know, I'm just going head first into this stuff and just feel like a really peace, like level of comfort, I guess. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Awesome. Darian, are you able to share? Are you able to share a few words? Because you're in Mexico, right?
Hi, everybody.
First
Yeah.
off, first off, I just wanted to feel the tropical vibes, so that's why I
Okay.
called on
Warm
you.
us up, Darian.
Yeah.
And and
In my
second of all, I don't like I don't know everything that happened, but it feels like you took a leap in your life and you went to Mexico and have like new relationships happening and new things happening. So it feels like you're kind of like had things crumble away and then opened up to a new creation. So I just thought maybe you could just share kind of from your perspective.
yeah. Yeah, I'm everything you said is um basically my story the last few months since the hurricane hit North Carolina. And it's been a daily practice of faith and trust that when you pray for God's will over your life, that everything that happens from that point on is, you know,
It's
a
God's
consequence
will.
is a consequence of that. Yeah. It's not possible for any detail to not be.
Mhm.
And I will say that yeah, I am somewhere beautiful and very, life supportive right now as I go through this transition. But I, I, I don't know like what's next. I don't have any idea what God's will is after this. And I have been going back and forth between it's okay, I don't need to worry about it. Just be here now, enjoy what is being revealed, to the human mind that wants to worry, it wants to know, like, well, then what am I doing? Like, what do you want from me? Like, I don't want to just travel and experience
Mhm.
my own pleasures of existence. Like, my prayer is that I get to be in service of some kind.
Mhm.
Um, and like nothing's really coming right now. And it is a practice to like just be so accepting and grateful, so grateful, so grateful for what amount has been given, of like what clarity has been given, and what direction has been given. Like I had never ever would have thought I would end up in Mexico with my doggy. and my new partner. Back in September, I never would have thought that this was possible for myself. Like I never saw this coming. So I again, just a reminder to always stay in your faith and trusting the process day to day and being open to um like really like anything to happen. And I do have that much trust and faith in God and the creator that something really beautiful is going to come out. Already is come out of all of this, but there's I feel confident that there's even more in, and who knows what that looks like. It doesn't have to be big. It could be small. Maybe it's just moving somewhere else and starting a life there. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Um, but I do, yeah, that human part of my brain definitely is like, what am I doing? What's next? What's going on? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but not letting that be the dominant thought processes, and
Mhm.
yeah, and having a daily practice, listening to, like, personally for me, it's listening to Jesus music and listening to like medicine music and being in meditation and prayer like every morning really sets the tone for the day. And I can tell a difference in the days that I don't do that. Yeah, having a practice for ourselves is it's really important. And even like if we're not going through anything that's kind of challenging, and yeah, I think you guys understand. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. It's great
Oh
to
yeah. Thanks for
hear that
asking.
reflection.
It's kind of, yeah, it's a lot to, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple reflections. I think it's a great segue into this element of prayer, right? So prayer, like what is prayer? You know, it can be a lot of different things. And I think it can be different things for different people. I think it can deepen over time. It can evolve into something you didn't think it was. But I wrote an essay about prayer recently, and I was saying like prayer, the way I would define prayer really simply is just a two-way communication, you know, where meditation is more of a listening practice. Prayer is like you're opening up like a two-way communication, right? So if you can open up that communication, so then the thing is like, well, how do I know who God is? How do I know what voice is all that stuff, is hard. Can be hard. For some people it's easy, right? But for some people it can be hard to discern, you know, where that inner guidance is coming from and what's the right guidance and what's the wrong guidance. But I think like with anything, the more you practice and you're sincere and you put you devote time to it, then the better you'll get at it, right?
Yeah.
And then you can start having two-way communication,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't know the answer to a question, you can ask God,
I
right?
have.
No, but for example, like you could say, God, what's next for me?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then listen for the answer. And you can
Yeah.
do this.
Of
I think this could be done with multiple people too.
course.
You know, like when I don't usually talk about this like overtly, but when I'm doing like coaching with someone, I'm like listening for, you know, what the guidance is with somebody, right? But yeah, but listening like, yeah, like what's my purpose? Right? I think that's one of the things I hear when you're speaking is like you're like trying to feel for purpose.
More, I feel that so much of my life right now is like self-serving,
Yeah.
and I find the most enjoyment out of
Yeah.
serving.
Yeah, I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And we for each of us, we talked about this before, like we each have a different way. Like for someone like Robin, it's like painting, that's her service. For somebody else, it could be fixing somebody's kitchen or everyone has their their different thing that is their gifts to share. Um, yeah, and feeling into, and it doesn't have to be like for the rest of your life. It could just be like, literally like what's next. What
Yeah.
And
what is it in this
Darian,
moment?
maybe this is your time to fill yourself so that when your time of service comes, you are so full of it that you're not depleted at all. You can just continue giving and giving and giving.
Thank you, Jacob. Yeah,
Fill up,
I
fill
agree.
up, fill up, girl, fill up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's I think that is what's happening right now in this season. Yeah.
But it's almost time for a new season.
Yeah. 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 Thank you guys.
Mhm. Yeah, but my point is like this idea, like I think when people think about being in the moment, they think they can't think about the future or they can't like envision the future. I think about the future all the time. Like I envision the future all the time and I'm like actively asking for, what's next? Where do I go next? What do I do next? Which direction is next? And making space to listen for
Making space to listen.
yeah,
Hmm.
making space to listen, like literally like space in the day to listen. And
One thing
sometimes
I did,
I
oh,
just want to say sometimes it's like it's hard because sometimes there's not as much. Some days there's a lot of space, some days there's not as much space. It doesn't feel like it anyway. So I think it's like making it a priority. Go ahead, Robin.
one thing I did once a few years back was to write down 100 things you'd like to be, do, or have.
Hmm.
And just and don't think of money or time or space or any limitations. Just let it flow, anything. And it's really an amazing thing. I felt like I was under a black dome before that, and it was dark. And then as I did it, all of a sudden these little windows started opening up and like light started streaming in. And I was like, I remember when I wanted to do that. Oh yeah. They often say that a lot of times people end up really doing something that they knew when they were a kid they wanted to do. But somebody said it wasn't practical or too hard or something, and so they shut the door and and all you have to do is open those doors and there's a way to do anything.
Amen.
Mm.
So Darian, if anything's possible, what do you feel you're called to create?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And at the moment, I don't have an answer.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's a question you can sit with, You can you can
Yeah.
you can bring that into your prayer and just Jeff shared something earlier today that I think is worth mentioning, which is like a practice of the more you can get into a space of inner stillness inside, and the more clearly you can hear the guidance, you know? So you said a word
I
that,
have a question.
yeah,
Um, so you know we talk about, God's will for us.
yeah,
And I do notice that I feel that maybe I have lost some of my own will for my life. Because even when you ask me that question, I say, I don't really know. I'm almost like maybe too dependent upon God's will for me. Like I don't even know what I want for myself in a way. It's like I
well,
don't even
you don't know what God wants for you either, though. Doesn't seem.
yeah. And so I feel like that's like this like, kind of like a limbo, and I'm like, I don't really know what I want. You just give it to me.
Mhm.
There's another phrase I love. It goes, love God and do what you will. Really, there's that. I don't know if God always has something specific that he's intending. You and God are much more closer to knit. So I think oftentimes we find out that, hey, God wanted just exactly what I wanted.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear that. Yeah.
Sorry to say, but I think we have to now define who is God and who are you, which could be a very deep, long conversation. But
That's a, yeah.
we're throwing out words here that we have to define.
That's a great, thank you for saying that though, because yeah, it just shifts everything slightly.
Hmm.
That in itself almost answers the question in a
Oh,
way.
okay, good.
Yeah. Not with an answer, but like it shifts the question completely.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It feels like that it's important to define like who are you, who's God, what's the difference, what's the delineation point.
Yeah. 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 And I think too for I mean I can only speak for myself, but um we really just want to know. And sometimes it's okay to not, like what Jacob was just saying, like this really could just be the season for just refilling up my cup. I just went through a huge life change unexpectedly, very rapidly, and when I do sit in meditation or prayer and then meditation, um, that's kind of what it's just like, just be still. And like for the human
Yeah,
brain, sometimes
that
that's not enough. Like we want more.
that's what I was gonna say is like the more you get into the stillness, the more you're like a clear or open space. So the more you're able to receive the guidance and the direction.
Yeah.
So you said one word before that really stood out to me, and you said something about how you worry about the future, right? So, and Jesus talks about this a lot, like, and a lot of other people talk about it too. Like when you worry is like it like severs the line. You know what I mean? When you worry, then you can't hear the guidance because it's like worry is like saying like I don't know how to explain it. Like
It's amplifying the fear.
it's almost like saying like I don't want the guidance. I know it's not happening consciously that way, but that's the
Yeah.
way it like works,
Yeah.
you know? So if you can get into a space of deeper silence and stillness inside, then there's like the mind quiets and the heart opens and the body opens, and then you're able to receive. It's like an antenna that's hooked that's able to receive the information.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So,
And
but like worrying implies like it implies
Lack
there's
of faith.
it implies that there's no God, right? So anytime we worry, it's like, oh, why did I just do that? That was a bad thing to do, you
Yeah.
know? But the more that we're like, but it's like this trick of like, in order to receive God's guidance, you need to trust, right?
Yeah.
And um, yeah, there's so much to say, but
I heard this coolest story of a woman who went through a real struggle of a time, and she was living with a relative, and all everything was loose ends, and she was so despairing because she didn't know what to do with her life, and she was praying to God and saying, "What should I do, God? What should I do, God?" And just as she was sitting there, the cat tipped over the milk bowl, and it was so weird because all of a sudden she heard, "Clean up the milk." And
nice.
she just started following this little voice that was just telling her what to do next. Now
Yeah.
wash the dishes, you know.
Yeah.
And she realized she was getting God's direction, and it led to really
She
wonderful.
was, but she wasn't because she wasn't listening to the next. It's like it's like, okay, I like this. So this goes on what we were talking about last night too. Like we may think the ego thinks it may have some like grandiose thing that it's supposed to do. It's some you become something that's going to make you all kinds of renowned and recognized. And yeah, and I was saying last night, like the guidance may actually be like, go mop up the kitchen floor.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
it's like when you're really available to God's will, you're available to whatever it is, and it may be something very simple and something that's not gonna, bring you fame, or maybe it is something grand, right?
Uh-huh.
I would say probably most of the day it's simple, and there may be a couple big ones in there, and that's where maybe fear arises. Can I really do this? Is this really something that I'm capable of? And
Mhm.
right. But yeah, when I say two-way communication, it is. Yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff is going to be very simple, very kind
Mhm.
of, mundane. And then what we were talking about too is when you're following God's will, the fulfillment comes. It's like living in alignment, Robin, right? It's like when you're living in total alignment inside, inwardly, you have this deep sense of like inner peace and inner freedom and love, and you feel empowered, and you feel like you're part of the whole. You're part of this. You're a part of this larger universe. You know, um, and so anyway, the point is that you could be mopping the floor and feel like amazing inside if that's what God's will is for you in that moment, right? Or
Yeah.
you could feel really bad inside if that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So I think the external movement becomes less and less important, and the internal movement is what's happening. Like I read a lot of stories about people that had massive spiritual awakenings in prison. The place you think would be like the worst place possible to be, and they had all this joy inside and ecstatic mystical experiences happening inside, and externally they were in a horrible situation, but um, but they're accessing that connection, that communion, internally.
Mhm.
And so that yeah, so we listening and whatever that is that we're called to do then is like secondary to being in that state of communion.
Sometimes we'll have an idea of something we'd like to do, but we might be a little afraid that it would be too big or too hard, or we might fail or whatever. But I came to a realization at one point that, hey, on my deathbed, I'm going to at least want to say that I at least tried, at least
Yes,
tried. Yeah, then I could pat myself on the back.
I fully agree, but also sometimes what we're called to do, we might feel like it's too small, you know.
Maybe.
Um, but this is the thing, you don't know. Like you don't know where it's going to lead. Like you may think it's small, but then what if you're called to go into, you're called to mop the floor in the kitchen, and then someone's in there and you have a conversation with them and they offer you a book deal. You know what I mean? Like there's these things that happen that in your ego, this is the difference between, for me, the egoic will and God's will. Like the egoic will thinks it knows everything, and it knows how it's all going to go, it knows what's best for us. We don't know. Like we really are so like, our understanding of how things can go is so tiny that that's where the trust in God comes,
Yeah.
that God is the creator. So God is the East universal intelligence. So God knows the whole plan. We can't see the whole plan. We can barely see anything. So, but if we trust that guidance, so we can connect to it and trust it, then we're in the miracles start to unfold. We're in that like divine synchronicity, and the miracles start to unfold more and more. And, just doing the simple things leads to amazing things, leads to miraculous things. And the intention is to be in that guidance moment by moment. Um,
And I like the idea that the standard of success is how much joy you feel. That's where you know if you've been successful or not. It's just how much joy you feel, because somebody could accomplish all kinds of great things, but have all kinds of stress and discomfort. And, how good is that? I mean, that's kind of a drag.
This is
Brian,
a
if I could offer this thought, I think we would all agree Jesus is certainly a wonderful example. And uh, when you read through the Gospels and look at the way Jesus walked, the uh, the things that are recorded are things that happened serendipitously. He's going along and a blind man cries out and says, Lord, heal me. And then we get the story of him healing the blind man. Or he's on, he's going from one place to another, meets the woman at the well. And that's a whole chapter in the book of John, where he just encounters this woman at the well and they have a conversation about living water. And so most of what's recorded in the Gospels is just the things that happened as Jesus was going from one place to another. He might set his mind, I'm going to Jerusalem for this feast, but on the way, boom, boom, boom. Or he's in a place and he gets word that his best friend is near death, Lazarus, the guy that he raised from the dead. Um, they just happened. They weren't, I doubt that Jesus sat and prayed and God told him, okay, tomorrow, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. So make sure you're here, 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 and here at these certain times. They just happened and he encountered them and dealt with them as he walked. So, I think we can take a lot of comfort in the fact that you talk about the egoic will. Maybe it's a little, when we kind of pray and we want to know, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Some of that is you're kind of prying into things that maybe God isn't ready to reveal to you, and He just wants you to clean up after the cat spilling the milk and take care of your sick mother or father and just encounter things as they come along and you'll be right in line with his will.
Yeah.
the joy thing is an interesting one and also a tricky one, but interesting one. So, um, yeah, just because there can be kind of like a impulsive hedonistic thing if you're looking for I know from my own personal experience, if you're looking for the joy that doesn't really work out in a sustainable way over the long run. And Mark just brought up Jesus, and Jesus was an inspiration to me, kind of going back to the story of Jesus, because he definitely didn't follow the joy in a personal, impulsive, hedonistic way, right? He actually went the way of suffering quite often. Um, but there's like a love, like if you're following God's will, there's like a love that you're living in that is like incredible. It's like I think it's what we all long for, what we all want. I think it's you could say it's heaven. It's like you're in a heavenly state internally, even again, like you could be in prison externally, but be in this state of feeling like you're in communion with heaven internally, because you're in this state of this like incredible love, this divine love, the love of God. You're like immersed in the communion of it. Um, so it feels like to me like and that will definitely bring moments of joy, probably way more than without it, right? But again, like the ego may think like, oh, this is the way to joy. I need to do this and this and all these different things, and it may not be the way to joy, right? Um, so that be able to have that connection where you can just like follow that guidance and trust it like unconditionally, even if it seems like it's scary or it seems whatever, you're not capable of it, or it seems like it's going to be difficult, or it's going to be hard. Um, I think that's where it's at. Any reflections on that, Jeff?
I think yeah, I think like you always say in breath work, let go and let God. Let go and let God. So as we go through life, the more we let go and let God, it's really the ultimate form of faith, right? Like just continuously letting go and letting God.
Yeah,
That's what was
every
coming
moment,
to me. Yeah,
every
every
moment.
moment.
Yeah. But so God is like this loving presence at the heart of creation, you know. So if you get like an idea of God or conceptualization of God, or like, that's not God, you know. And my realization is that God is not separate from you either. You're one with
Hmm.
God, God is one with you. So that makes the whole conversation interesting, of like, is it me or is it God? Is it God or is it me? Well, it's there's not a division line, there's not a separation line. Like, but it can certainly feel like there's a separation or division. It could feel like there's no God at all the more you're wrapped in your own ego, you know? So the more you're wrapped in the illusionary sense of a separate self, even though it's not really true, it feels like it's true for you, you know, and you can feel all alone and feel like you have to do it all yourself, and you have to figure it out all yourself. And, you know, that can be the reality of what you're experiencing. But
Hmm.
you're the fact that we're able to receive God's guidance and direction at all, because God's like the unified field of intelligence that permeates all things. But the fact we're able to receive God's guidance at all must mean we're not separate from it. Otherwise, how could we receive it if we were separate from it? Right. So
Yeah.
so it's to me, it's the truth of who we really are. So we're kind of accessing the truth of who we really are. And we're able to receive that and like have that line of communication. The more that we are available to it, the more it's able to direct us at all times. And that's when, you know, the synchronicities and the miracles and all of this stuff starts coming online for us.
It's also really helpful to, I like the word acknowledge all the little directions you do get in a day. Because a lot of times they're there and we've done them, but we might not pay attention. And it's really good. So you maybe even in a journal or something to say, hey, I did this and I did that. And that's giving it credit and acknowledging it and makes it you more attuned to that the next day.
Marissa, do you want to share anything?
I guess I could speak off of what Robin had just shared. So a practice that I like to do before bed is journal. And so the way I journal is like I try to go back and write down everything that I did during the day. Because a lot of the times I forget what I do during the day, or like maybe certain things come back up and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that I can choose to be grateful for, or that was a unique experience, or that was, but I think for me, a practice of doing that is like Robin, you were sharing, it's an acknowledgement of maybe signs or guidance or whatever that had been shown throughout the day. And so I don't know, I just that's something that I notice has is beneficial to me and in a form of prayer almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice. Yeah. And the thing about prayer is you can ask anything. Like I think people can be a little too rigid in what they think prayer. Like there's really no limits to prayer. It's like you can ask anything and potentially get the answer to anything. So like someone was saying to me, I was talking about prayer, and they were like, "Well, I don't know how to pray." And I said, "Well, ask God, how do I pray?" Right? Like you can ask anything and get the answer to the question. And the
A good
question
one,
the question may be unique to you. Like the way you're called to pray may be a little bit different than someone else's called to pray, potentially.
a good one can be just say, God, I need more clarity, and pray for clarity.
Well, I would say it's also important to, so this goes into like coaching too, right? Like the more specific the question is, the more specific the answer is, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like the question is more important than the answer. That's what I've realized, right? So it's like a lot of times the reason people aren't getting good answers is because they're not asking the right questions.
Yeah, that one would be for when you really don't have you can't fathom anything, but you could say, I'd like more clarity
My
on what would be,
relationship or, what to
yeah,
eat for dinner or,
uh-huh.
whatever it
Oh,
is. Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I really want Avery to share for the first time in the circle, but only if he really wants to.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I was even just thinking about like those daily quick little decisions. Um, Even like, should I eat this? If it's like a whole bag of potato chips, the answer is no. And like I know that answer, but like just asking God for that answer, I feel like will be like that's just like one little example. Or like, should I like flip this guy off in traffic? Even though like that's what I want to do. It's just like
Yeah,
it almost like the question is
that's
the right
that's a good
question that
example. I just want to say that's a very good example of like the ego may be telling you one thing, but God may be telling you a different thing.
yeah. And I think the way that you like it brings that up is that the question acknowledges the egoic will that's in
Mhm.
like out of alignment with
Mhm.
divine will.
Mhm.
So that's what I was reflecting on before you asked me to share.
Yeah, I love that. I love the intention to, because it's like, well, I pray in the morning. Okay, but why not pray throughout the day?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jeff and I, we have this book, Saint Maximus, Saint Maximus the Confessor. It's a great book. I thought it was pretty powerful, and the intention of his teaching, as I understood it, was to pray unceasingly. He
Mm-hmm.
said that's basically the goal, is to pray unceasingly. So to have the prayer be unbroken, that you're praying 24 hours a day. Now, praying 24 hours a day, the way I understand it, doesn't mean you're like doing a Hail Mary 24 hours a day. It means you're like listening for God's guidance in each moment. That's my
Mm-hmm.
understanding of what it means to pray unceasingly. So yeah, it's like, should I eat these potato chips? You know, should I go outside? You know what I mean? It's like you're to be in that space where that's your line of community. That's your direction is coming from God in each moment. And
Mm-hmm.
if you make a mistake, right, to sin means to miss the mark. So if you make a mistake, um, and you do something that wasn't from God's guidance, it was from the ego. So then you just know you take a note of that and you just start again, and just keep starting again and get better and better at it. And we're all on the journey together. That's the fun part.
Yeah, it says in the Bible over and over, it says choose again.
Yeah. Yeah. What is Mark, what does the word repent mean? What's the translation of repent? Doesn't it mean something like, well, tell me what it means. You would.
You're muted.
Ooh, I'm on my iPhone and I couldn't get the thing to pop up. It means to stop and go the other direction, the opposite direction.
To turn around or something.
Right, to
Yeah, yeah.
turn around and go the other way.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean to feel sorry. I mean, that might be a part of it, but it actually means to stop and go the other
Yeah.
way.
So it's like oh, I realized I'm going the wrong direction. Well, then go the right direction,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Great stuff. I think we're complete, unless anyone has anything they're divinely inspired to share. Let's uh let's pause it here and envision us all being in the tropics with Darian and Mexico by the beach and be open to receive the guidance and wisdom that is here for us this evening. Integrate this, all that's opened up here.
Hey, Brian, really quick, can I share something?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just tied up and couldn't get to the phone. But so if you're sinning and you're not repenting, so if you're continuously missing the mark
Uh-huh.
and you're not turning and going the other way,
Yeah.
then you're going to live in a pretty miserable place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the Bible, they would call that hell. You'll feel like
Yes.
you're living in hell.
Yes. Suffering the consequences of hell.
Yeah. But the good news is you can change your direction anytime.
You can repent. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes depression can be when in your heart you really want something, you're really wanting a change, but you're not taking the steps to go there. That
Mhm.
can create a depression.
That's very depressing.
Uh-huh.
Just you saying it sounds depressing.
I've been there.
No, I know. I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that leads to this emotional intelligence component, right? It's like if you're feeling depressed, um, if I would ever be feeling depressed, then I would say, well, why am I feeling depressed? Right? And there's a reason why that, like you said, it could be something along those lines. It's like basically there's something you're supposed to be doing that you're not doing.
Yep.
And so you feel depressed,
Mhm.
And
Held down, depressed.
yeah. Yeah, and then because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you feel like a lack of energy and vitality and a lack of purpose and like, I don't even feel like getting out of bed. I just want to watch TV or whatever. Um, so then you could pray and be like, God, what is my purpose? What is my direction? What am I called to do? And I think if you can really just ask these questions and get quiet inside, then you'll be able to hear, what those answers are for you. And it's good to have friends, good to have community, good to have people that support you, good to have mentors. All that can be definitely very helpful. And sometimes that's what you'll hear. You'll hear like you need someone to talk to. You need somebody. It'll direct you to a specific person, specific name, specific you know group, specific. All that is available to us if we're able to listen for it.
I'm grateful that I could join the call tonight because of that reason right there. What you just said, to come and plug back into the community, receive so much from everything that everyone shared. I have a whole page of little notes of like reminders from all of you. I'm so grateful that I was led in this time and space opened up so I could join this call with all of you guys tonight.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Darian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something interesting. I don't usually like, I've kind of had to serve a policy of not like calling people out because some people don't want to talk, so I generally don't call on people and like ask them to talk. But God told me to call on you. So I did.
I needed it. I did. I'm so grateful that I could join tonight. You guys
Yeah.
really just filled me back up and just reminded me of the truths and yeah, community and support with like-minded people and all of that is like we need it.
Mm-hmm.
Connection. We're not
Yeah.
alone.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's an interesting thing because like I'm glad that I listened to that, right? Because I could have just said, well, that's not how we do it here. So God, that's not how we do it. You know, there's a what's the story where Jesus he's gonna heal somebody and they say, oh, you can't do that. The rule is you don't do it on the Sabbath.
Oh, that was continuous. The Pharisees were constantly getting on Jesus' case because he healed on the Sabbath. And, Jesus pointed out that the Sabbath was made for man, not the other way around.
Yeah. So sometimes God will tell you to break your own rules.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it says in the Bible that Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. I mean, yeah,
At least in the circle, anyway. That's what I got. That's what I got tonight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Let's keep it going. See you next Thursday.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.